Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Ask a Death Doula. This is the Good Death Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to announce that Doula Givers Institute is an official partner with the Lifting the Lid Festival this year. I am honored and thrilled. And today we have an interview with the co-founder, Jo Dagless, of Lifting the Lid International Festival of Death and Dying. This is returning for its fifth year. So I was honored to be part of the first one, I believe, and it is an incredible festival that has 3 days, 72 full hours of events, everything to do with life, death, grief, and in between, which is the human experience, right? And this year, I am honored to be part of a Death Doula Global panel and also to be wrapping up the festival with my Universal Life Mastery training. So without further ado, I'm going to put the link down below for you to register. The festival is going to be online, live between November 14th and 16th. The tickets are amazing. The events are incredible. And so there's something for everyone. So I have the link down below, so make sure to check it out and to grab the tickets and the events that you want. Right now, we are going to interview Jo Dagless. She, again, is the co-founder of the Lifting the Lid International Festival on Death and Dying, and this year, Doula Givers Institute is an official partner. We are so incredibly honored. So sit back, relax, enjoy the podcast. Jo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Suzanne. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Well, I'm so excited to be talking to you, and I was honored to be in one of your festivals, and I'm back this year, so honored and blessed and excited about it. But I also know how special it is, and you do this annually. So it's Lifting the Lid Festival on Death and Dying, and it's November 14th to 16th this year. It's an international festival on death and dying, and it's called Lifting the Lid, which is really something that I want to dive into in this podcast. But before we do that, may I ask you, what is your background and what brought you to this sacred space of working and talking and educating about death?
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. I'm going to say I'm so honored to be talking to you about it. I haven't actually sort of met you personally before, but I've signed up to your doula training and I obviously follow you and have seen your sessions at our festival. So it feels like a real privilege to be speaking to you, but also to have you ending our festival this year with your work, which I hope we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But my background is in the arts, particularly theatre, and I worked a lot with themes of death and dying. I think as so many of us do come to this space because of our own personal experience with grief, loss, illness. Um, so I personally, had experienced loss at a very young age. And that seemed to continue through my teens and those very formative years. So it was always something at the forefront of my mind, and I was always questioning how it was dealt with, how my grief was received, how those deaths were dealt with. And I'm going back sort of 40 odd years now, so thank goodness things have changed, but in those days it just wasn't really talked about, so it became quite a focus of my creative work. It was mainly performance art, lots of digital technology and movement and sound, not so much narrative led, but that did become a big focus for me at the time because of those personal experiences. I then became chronically ill myself, and I had to shift from working in a live performance space to working digitally, editing film, things I could do from here on my lovely bed. So during the pandemic, I began recording a project called Conversations on Life and Death on Zoom. They were just conversations with people across the world, and Zoom was becoming very well used, and it felt that people were suddenly very open to having these conversations. Yeah, and that was my realization. I think that those talks were being had more openly. Um,
Mhm.
Through those conversations, I met Victoria Keane, who is a funeral director here in the UK. She's doing the frontline work, so we come at things from a very different angle, I suppose. She'd organised a small community festival years ago, where she'd invited funeral directors and organ donation organizations, lots of other people working in the field, to a very small village hall where they'd had stalls and they'd all just met and talked. And I think that we realized that we could combine her community-based approach and my sort of digital experiences, and hopefully create something larger, longer lasting, and more action based. Because I think the thing I'd found with the conversations were, we were having the conversations, we were putting out the films, and that was the end of it. That was the end of the conversation. That was the end of connection, and it just ended there. And I think
Mhm.
I wanted a wider forum in which these conversations could continue and connections could continue to be made. So yeah, we decided that this was a space where people all over the world, we hoped, we didn't know when we started, but we hoped would come together annually. Again, didn't know that at the beginning at all, to talk and share and connect around death and dying, and we would just see where it went. This has been the fifth year now. I think we've had people from 50 plus countries around the world, which astounded us to start with, and now it's almost become just part of the course, which sounds, now I'm looking back, it's astonishing. Um,
Yeah.
I think it just goes to show what a need there is for people to connect and converse about these subjects, as I'm sure you find in your work.
I do. And there's so much, in your journey and story, which I feel like there always is. And then, just you and your own experience having losses and questioning how is this being, approached and dealt with, and what is happening here, right? So for something, and it's always been at the forefront of my mind, for something that we're all going to guaranteed to go through, not just with those that we love, but with ourselves, and for something that's been going on for thousands of years. How did it get to this moment of fear, of pretending it doesn't happen, not planning? And then on the other side of that, which is what I'll be sharing in the close of your festival as well, is that befriending death is the greatest way to learn how to live fully. And I mean that on so many levels. So when you share about that, questioning how we're doing it and following with your artistic talents, and then COVID. So let's talk about COVID for a minute, because I've been doing this for a very long time. And when COVID hit, and I was in New York City at the time, living in New York City, which was the epicenter and of the US COVID at the time. But what I do know from being a nurse is that when there's an airborne something,
Mhm.
you can't contain that. It's very hard. And so, yes, it was the epicenter. And yes, we were all on top of each other. And one of the things that was the biggest concern to me was the isolation and the shutdown
Mm.
mentally for people. What about our older people that are alone in apartments? Just all of the things that were happening. And the question of the unknown. But what it did was it brought to the forefront that each and every one of us is going to have an end of life. And it can happen at any time, it can happen at any age. So I think this beautiful platform called Zoom, right? And the ability to connect was a blessing within that. And I think
Mm.
that people were stepping into, wait a minute, you know, death is happening. It's going to happen. What can I learn about it? What can we talk about? So I thought there was a real invitation there that you took advantage of, which is beautiful. And we showed up with life cafes 3 times a week, and it was just
Mm.
because I thought Death Cafe was a little too much to pop up at that moment because of the fear. So, and again, I often say, Joe, that when we're talking about death, we're talking about life. And that's exactly, again, what your festival is so exciting about, because it really is getting to what is this journey about? Like, what are the
Mm.
true important things? Understanding one day it will not be the way I know it today makes me really want to search that out and question that and be able to be in acceptance when that day comes. So I
Yeah.
love that you did that. And just about your own experience with an illness, there are a couple of things that break us open, right, to in our lives. And, one of them is when we do have something that happens for ourselves. So I know how challenging, I don't know exactly what you have that you work with, but I want to say that it's really beautiful that you share that story, and that you've used it, say, okay, what can I do at this moment? And I really think there's almost no accident, designing this now that you're reaching people in how many countries every single year and allowing the flow to be there. Was that all divinely orchestrated? I'm going to say I kind of think it definitely is. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I say I was working in sort of the performance space, and I was getting a little bit bored of it, if I'm honest. I've been doing it for years.
Mhm.
I was a big show off, and I think I'd grown out of that need to show off, and I didn't really know what else I could do. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that there's something so positive about having something that just shifts the direction and makes the decisions for you. And it takes a lot, I'm sure, for anybody else there, struggling with health issues. First of all, you have to accept that this is your position now. Um, and I think you have to do a lot of work. And I'm sure not everybody, but I certainly had to do a lot of work on feeling grateful for what I did had. I'd had a fantastic life, and I had a lot of skills.
Mhm.
I'm feeling grateful about that. And as you rightly say, thinking, well, okay, I'm in this position. What can I do now?
And I'm not trying to diminish the suffering that people go through because, I think everyone goes through things, different
Mm,
levels, and that's not to diminish that they're not hard and suffering and there's that time that needs to be. But if we can go, and I often will say, we're human beings, right? That's what we learn working with those at the end of life. Because as
yeah.
I see their physical body diminish, their spiritual body grows. And there's four truths that each one of them has been saying. And I've been with over a privilege to be with over 1,000 people from different cultures and religions. And they start to say the same things. They have their spiritual wisdom. That is the truth about life, right? That is what we want. But when we're able to step outside of the human part, if we're able to connect with the heart and step out and say, okay, let me look at the situation that's going on in my life. What's here for me?
Mm,
Is there, and I think there always is, I know there always is, what is the learning? What is the gift? What is it trying to teach me? Where is it rooting me on my path? And sometimes those reroutes are sharp and painful and scary and sudden, and we tend to not like them, right? But when we look back, we're like, wow, I would have never gotten on that path
yeah.
had it
Yeah.
not been for that fork in the road.
Yeah. And it was a very selfish existence. It was all about me. And this is all about other people, what
It's
I'm
all
doing.
about service.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Oh, I
such a
love that.
gift.
I love that so much. That's called the evolution of you and the journey. So really beautiful. And that's really what this is about, right? We have this human
Mhm.
experience. We think it's all about us. We're holding on to resentment and anger and why me and all the things. And then we get to, wait a minute, it's about we. And then hopefully we get to places, how may I serve? How
Absolutely.
may I be of service?
Yeah.
Which is where you're at. So let's talk about lifting the lid. I love the title. And when we were getting into the podcast today, I said, I really want to hone into this lifting the lid because I deal with this every day. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've educated so many people. We've been blessed to have so many people take the level one doula givers training, get the Good Death book, and just be in these platforms. And still, we're still at such a early stage of the shift of what
Mm.
I feel is bringing death back to the natural, sacred experience it's meant to be. So tell me about the title and how did that come about?
I have to say it wasn't my idea. I wish it had been, because I think it's a great title. It was Victoria's partner's idea. You know, we went through loads of different titles, and to be honest with you, I can't remember what any of them were now. Originally we had a little coffin image with the open lid to kind of go with it as an icon, but that seemed to just kind of, it seemed quite an exclusive image, you know, because we're not all using the archetypal coffin shaped box when somebody dies, so that seemed a little bit exclusive. So yeah, we kind of widened it out, and we just had this box idea, that we would open the lid, and whoever had come to us and was inside that box was happy, and very welcome to show and present and share whatever their experience may be. You know, we didn't want to narrow it down. And I will say it's a very
Mm-hmm.
inclusive festival. You know, I mean, I'm trying to make it more diverse, which is quite a job in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But that is certainly one of the main priorities I do have now, is to really encourage more diversity in
Mm-hmm.
presenters and audience members as well. But yeah, we just wanted it to be really, really open. I mean, I think the art side of it, probably because of my background, but also because when we'd been working on the conversations on life and death, a lot of the people that I'd spoken to in those films had created something with those feelings, with those experiences, whether that be poetry or music or
Yeah.
art. So I started editing that into those films. So it made me realize that there were 1,001 ways in which we can talk about this subject. And there
Mm-hmm.
are 1,001 places we can come from geographically and also spiritually and experientially. And yeah, we just wanted that box to open, and whatever needed to come out of that box could come out. So it would be a bit of a surprise for people, I suppose, you know, as to what they would find when they arrived online over that weekend.
And we all have different things we gravitate to, you know, and we all have different ways that we culturally, you know, have been learning or educated or lack thereof. And I love that you have all this diversity and all these different offers. It's like a beautiful buffet that people can choose what's right for them. I
Mm,
honestly, from the first festival that I did with you, didn't even know how you pulled it off, because we'll talk about it's live and there's so many events and it's so wonderfully done that I'm so impressed with it. But I do love the diversity, and I love that, first of all, I think the most important thing, and you know, it resonates when I started with the phrase death is not a medical experience, it's a human one, to doctors, to people. Do you know, even to doctors, when I was sharing what we do, they go, "Oh, wait a minute. Right." And we've been telling doctors they need to fix it, that if their patient dies, they failed. And when I say that statement, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh yeah. So I feel like for you, lifting the lid is the same exact thing. It's
mm.
saying, let's just open this because it's been tightly shut. And how's that working? Not well for anybody. And inside that box is all these beautiful things related to this that you can choose what's right for you.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a unique mix of people, you
Hmm.
know, professionals, like funeral directors, carers, doulas, trainers like yourself,
Hmm.
academics like yourself. I mean, you probably fit into all the categories, to be fair, because you do so much, so impressive. But, you know, alongside those people are people who are just coming with their personal experiences of grief,
Yeah.
or they're just coming out of curiosity about mortality. There are medics involved, but there are also artists and writers and musicians who are exploring death in creative ways. And as you rightly said, it spans 72 hours over the weekend. With talks, interactive workshops, performances. You can pop in, you can pop out. You don't have to be on time for the beginning of the session, if you need to be in bed, and come
Yes.
as you are,
Yes.
I mean,
It's so good. It's so, so good. I really want to share that because I've been involved with so many different things and you run it beautifully and it's so well done. And I love that you said, come as you are. Come late. Like there's no judgment here. Like there's all just community
absolutely.
and love, which is
Yeah.
something that we need a lot more of,
Yeah.
that kind of energy, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
without wanting to seem cliched, it is a very safe, welcoming and
yes.
supportive space. And I think people really do also form very lasting connections,
Hmm. Hmm.
well, ourselves being just two of those. And I've seen collaborations and friendships and
Hmm. Hmm.
projects that have grown out of meetings that have happened over that weekend, which is exactly the point, isn't it? That these
It is.
conversations
Planting
and
seeds, watering them, watching them grow,
absolutely,
having the ripple effect. And I really want to say to you that, we're all looking at the world, right? And we know that it's extremely challenging at the moment. And we're waiting for different, elections and different laws and all of that to get changed. And
mm,
to me, yes, that is helpful, but we have a choice. See, it's our choice. How I choose to show up with love, with non judgment, with compassion, with presence with one another. And this festival and the work that we do provides that awareness and platform. And that's how we change the world. That's
yeah.
something we all can do. We all have a choice in that. So it's just really beautiful. And we need more of it. But what an amazing thing the internet is that you can have a festival that crosses the globe, has people from all over. Grief. I want to talk about because this is another thing that there's two things, if I may, that I really want to highlight is that
Mm,
I feel like when we open this conversation, one of the most important things is for people to think about quality of life and what that means to them. Because for me, as that former hospice nurse, oncology nurse, doula giver, that's the benchmark that people need to choose for themselves. And I think this is really important and empowering because when we don't, first of all, live with the awareness, somebody asked me on a podcast that was beautiful. They said, what do you think our biggest mistake is when we're about death? And
mm,
I said, pretending like it's not going to happen. And they
mm,
were like, yeah, because when we pretend that and it shows up, and 100% it will, right, at some point, it usually is very quick and doesn't go well. It
mm,
also doesn't provide us the awareness of what a gift today is. And that's not to sound contrite, it's to say, you know what? One day, whether it's again on a different level of my physicality, but one day I will not be in this journey as I know it today.
mm,
What's important to me today? So I started
mm,
living each day like it was one little lifetime so that I didn't miss it, right? With how do I want
mm,
to show up and how do I want to connect and how do I want to have, those moments of joy and service. And so
mm.
when the day does come, hopefully I can be Joe at a place where I say, okay, I contributed. And I think this is so important for each person. And, when I do talk with people about the quality of life and what brings your day joy as the benchmark, many adults now say, I don't even know what brings me joy.
Mm,
And I'm like, we need to really look at that because,
absolutely.
yeah, because we're living almost in this robotic way, and we're following, you know, not rules, but things have been said. You're supposed to work really hard, and you're supposed to do this, and marry this type of person, and do this, and people at the end of life will admit that they were not happy with those things. Not that they're wrong, but if they don't follow their heart guidance, they don't have that fulfillment to connection. And so making sure that you revisit what brings you joy on a daily basis,
Yeah. Yeah. And
reconnect
I
with
think
that.
talking about death is such a life affirming.
Ah, it's
It,
the greatest life
and
affirming.
it's fun, and I'm not belittling anybody's grief or experience, but it can be such fun. And I think the more lightly we hold these subjects, the more easy it is to talk about and the more easy it is to make change in the
Yeah.
world. No.
I was thinking this morning as I was waking up, it was interesting. I was thinking of these two women who had chosen natural burials and their 3-day home funerals. And when they were both telling me about what their choices were, there was such a empowerment and peace in how they were describing. Now they're describing their end of life. They're telling me this is the outfit I'm going to be buried in. This is the pine box. This is who's going to care for me. This is what's going to happen to my body after. There was such a peace and empowerment to them, and I thought, oh, we need to have these conversations. And it's
Yeah.
not telling anyone what you need to choose. It's letting you know you have choices. You have
Absolutely. To
choices.
reclaim your agency, to decide how you live, how you die, how you're remembered. Yeah, absolutely.
I love
Yeah.
it. And so when you open up these things, it gives a tunnel for the energy that goes with grief. And so what I'm seeing right now with this complicated traumatic grief is not a surprise based on that we don't talk about death. So it shows up quickly. People, don't even know what happened. Many times, obviously, they wish they had done things differently, and all of the things that it's just even heartbreaking to say. Not even having the skills of knowing how to care for my loved one, what is
Mm,
happening, that
mm.
100 years ago was handed down to a grandmother to a
Yeah.
grandchild. This is really what Doula Givers Institute is based on. But then they're stuck with this grief because, and it's traumatic because it was a traumatic experience. There's no ritual. There's nowhere to, and you're providing these options for ritual. And one of the most beautiful for me is home wakes and home funerals,
Mm.
bringing back the transformation that it invites people to have is unbelievable. And also reminding people that, these were parts of ancient cultures, all had these, and these are why they used to look at death like a sacred rite of passage. Where
Mm.
did that go? And it's time to
Yeah.
bring that back.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of material this year, concerning that. I mean, I've got a list here, but we're talking about. I'm not. I certainly am not, but somebody else is talking about ancient rites and interestingly technological advances that are giving us back some agency and control and ownership over the passing of somebody or yourself. The growing popularity of home funerals and community death care, particularly, I would say, not particularly in this country, but more so in your country and in Australia and New Zealand for sure. It's a big movement, which is fantastic, and we can learn from what other people are doing because it is still happening in the world, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's not. It hasn't. The whole system and history and ritual that you talk about, it hasn't gone away. It's just a lot of us have forgotten how to do it. It's still there in pockets around the world.
Yeah, very few pocket, but yeah, so readopting that back, right?
Yeah,
And then also using current things like aquamation or water cremation as
yeah.
an option. That's a very green one. But we think about the funeral and we think about in America, the average cost, I think it's between $7,000 and $11,000 for a standard. Um, Not many people have that type of money just to easily pay, but it also, to go to a viewing that sometimes is about a 2 hour between 2 and 4, people come and pay their respects somewhere that's not the home. Then it really doesn't work like that. It's almost confusing to me how we ever adopted that to think that that would suffice
Yeah,
closure to a
yeah,
lifetime. It doesn't make sense. It makes sense. Oh, yes, people want to be at home at the end of life. Why not have them stay at home and have people come in and bring food and have music playing in the background, whatever they want? And what a fraction of the cost that would be, but also the
absolutely.
through line ritual. This is if people choose that, if they want that, but just letting them know they
Sure.
have that choices because a lot of
But I think
people,
you're right. It's
yeah,
it's like people are doing it, but I don't think the majority of us are aware that that's an option.
they're
And
not.
that
And
that's
it's
key, isn't it?
interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting in the United States because a lot of people are under the false assumption that they need to be embalmed, which is the
Yeah.
by law. They think by law they have to. It's It's knowledge is power, and I love your
Yeah.
festival, and I love this conversation because we're bringing it back. But here's the thing: we have one opportunity to have end of life go well, and we have one opportunity to have life go well. And death to me is the greatest teacher about how to live, because people at the end of life, when they're sharing with you what they want you to know, they're not trying to sell you anything. They're really
No.
sharing with you. And it's about community, and it's about connection, and it's about service, and it's about learning, right, in this journey. So tell us what we can expect from November 14th to 16th. What do we have in store? And then we'll tell people how they can join.
Yeah, okay, goodness me. Let me see. I've tried to make a very short list of what's going on. So we've got sessions on supporting children through death. And as we were talking about, can they be at home while the person is dying? Can they have a hand in dressing that body? How early is it to introduce children to this? There's some great sessions on that kind of thematic. Repurposing textiles to share visual stories, whether that be something you already own of a person that's died or something of theirs. And I love that the sort of tactile nature. I mean, I think a lot of us keep the clothes of people that we lose, but to actually repurpose them and use them rather than just have them in a drawer, which I do. So we've got somebody talking about their own personal experience of suicidality and how that led to courage, their own courage, compassion, and connection. On the other side of that coin, we've got people talking about being suicide bereaved, because I do think there's a slightly different flavor to that. It's something that's almost even more taboo to talk about than just dying, in inverted commas. So I think that's really important too. As we talked about, there's a lot of people talking about more eco-aware funerals, and changing the landscape of saying goodbye and how we deal with the death, that it's not, as you say, a medical emergency. We have all the time in the world once that person has died to do what we need to do to
Yes.
move through that grieving process.
Hmm.
We're going to be looking at how cultural and religious values shape our attitude, so globally, and of
Yeah.
course, those are massively varied. Memorial art, we've got two different people from two different countries who are using ashes of a loved one, and they will make a picture, a painting with the ashes of your loved one. And I know you can
Ooh,
fire them into space, and you can have jewelry, and you need to know all this stuff before you, as my
love
mother
it.
unceremoniously did, threw my father in the river, and I didn't have a chance to keep a bit of him. And if you want to keep a bit, of course you can. You can put it in a little bottle and share it out amongst your family. There are so many things we don't know about, and
Uh,
it can become too late, can't it? Uh,
yeah.
we need to know all of this before it happens, as you rightly said at the top of this chat. We're talking about death
Listen.
in the migrant population, which is
Mhm.
something I have
Yeah.
no sort of knowledge of at all, particularly in border crossings, which of course is incredibly pertinent today. The history of the coffin in the British Isles from medieval times and how that's shaping our response to death. That's actually from a member of CDAS, which is a big death and society organization based at Bath University. And somebody from there is at the festival every year. So I'm really grateful to them. They're very inspiring. We've got some sound poems inspired by
Mhm.
end-stage breathing patterns, which I'm really looking forward to. Performance art born out of a newly trans performer's past life of addiction and his relationship with nearing death at that time, and
Mhm.
how he's changed that around and become a performance artist, embracing anger as a guide to healing and moving through loss. Voluntary assisted dying and medically assisted dying we'll be covering, looking at grave goods from Egypt through the world of celebrity and royalty to your own experience and what you would like in your coffin, or your mother or father or brother or sister's coffin. Child and baby loss we're going to look at, which is often again something that people find very difficult to talk about. Uh,
Mhm.
the admin and the red tape and the death-related paperwork,
Yeah.
innovative technology that does now exist, which makes that easier.
Mhm.
And planning your own and your loved ones' death and making sure you're having those conversations,
Mhm.
advanced conversation, anticipatory grief, which is, something that we don't talk about very often.
Yep.
Um, Cemeteries as tangible records of evolving end of life practices and how you can actually walk in there and see how things are changing, which is something I love to do anyway. We've got Death Cabaret, which we have every year, which is some Atlanta-based artists who are telling their personal stories of grief and loss through music, spoken word, burlesque, dance. It's really out there. It's really vibrant. I wouldn't miss it. It's fantastic. Caring for the carers, and how
Yep.
do we,
Yep.
as people in this field, do we walk the walk? Do we have our advanced plan ready? Do you know? Do
Right.
we know who's
Yep.
going to look after us at the end of our life? Uh,
Yeah, I feel like that's the first thing you need to do when you're in this. If you know, you
yeah,
have got to do it yourself, and then also you've got to practice that self-care
yeah,
because
yeah,
you're the example. So you can't teach what you're not practicing.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I know we're all works in progress. I
of
am,
course,
but at
of
least we try
course.
our best,
Yeah. And
right?
the more we talk about it, the more that
Yeah.
becomes entrenched in us, doesn't it? Those
Yeah.
practices become entrenched. It can't just be a learn it, do it. It has to, we have to
A
reinforce those
habit, a
practices
practice.
within our daily lives.
Well,
We're talking about
it sounds
language, we
like,
talk about animals as well. I mustn't forget animals. Um,
oh, our
and then
babies.
yourself with, how to access the joy of being through, as you said so beautifully, raising the individual and thereby the collective consciousness through these
Ah,
conversations. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your experiences that you've had. You call it the wisdom of those at the end of their lives, and you've alluded to it just earlier on today. And I really can't wait to hear what you share about that. It's about finding, as you so rightly said, it's about finding inner peace, joy, purpose, and living the lives we're meant to live. And if death doesn't do that for us, I don't know what's going to,
it's the best teacher.
really is.
It's the best teacher and the healing and what is the human experience all about? And then how do I show up? You know, how do I contribute? And so the minute that I started working with those at the end of life, my life changed. And it was instantaneous because my perception changed. Because
Mm,
no longer was it, oh, I have to go to the gym. It
mm,
was, I get to go to the gym.
yeah.
And this can be for everyone. You can change your life in an instant with you change the level in which you see your life in. But the wisdom and knowing the fragility
Mm,
of this gift, but then also understanding from them what the gift is all about. What is the journey all about? And finding that alignment, finding that place of home. So I'm so honored to be closing the festival with this because I think it lends us to that next iteration of okay, let's go out there. And again, it's about, you know, raising our individual and collective vibration. So I'm so honored to be a
mm.
part of it. Joe, you do a phenomenal job of this with everything that you do. And we're going to have all the links down below. So let people know how the tickets work if you could. And then we'll put all those links down below.
Yeah, sure. So we do have a weekend ticket, and it's
Mhm.
20 English pounds. I think that might be about 23, $24, but that covers you for the whole weekend. But we are a volunteer-led organization, so
Mhm.
I don't get paid for this. And I have a wonderful team of moderators. I think we've got about 12 or 13 people that come back every year and help moderate each session. So, presenters aren't just left on their own in the Zoom room, they've got support. And they're all volunteering as well. So there is a ticket price just to cover the costs, but we also have pay what you can ticket. So you can quite happily pay from, I don't know, 50 cents up to more than $20 if you want. It's completely up to you.
Mhm.
And there are free options available for those that can't pay anything. And that's fine by me. I want to keep it as diverse, inclusive,
Mhm.
and as
Mhm.
accessible as I possibly can, because it is that one universal. Nobody deserves excluding from these conversations,
That
for
is
sure.
so right and so beautiful. And I agree, but it's such a wonderful festival. So, everyone, grab your tickets below. The links are in the show notes. I will be there. I will be closing the festival and also doing a death doula talk on a panel. It is an amazing opportunity. Joe Dagless, I want to thank you. Lifting the Lid Festival, you are amazing. And thank you for the service you put into this world.
Well, Right back at you, Suzanne. Thank you for, you've inspired me tremendously through your work. I have to say, it's been a real pleasure to share just a little bit about the festival, and these conversations that mean so much to both of us. And I just hope, people that are watching feel encouraged to join us or just start their own conversations about
And
death and
share.
dying
Share the festival with
and
others. Yeah.
absolutely and live life to the full. I think that's the
Yes. Because
every
you
moment counts.
because everyone deserves that. You're here for a reason. You are worthy and you deserve that. And if
Yeah.
this festival can help share how you can access that, and it can, join us because you deserve it. And we love you
Yeah.
so much. So,
You
Joe,
too.
thank you. I'll see you in the festival.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Grab your tickets in the show notes below. Didn't you just love that? She is absolutely amazing. I honestly don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do this festival with magic and so many incredible people on their team. It is so worth your time. This is the moment. This is the time we get together in what we've learned and how much more similar we are than different. And how do we make this shift into the new world that's being created, one that's choosing love over fear. And this festival is an example of how to do that. So please join us. Again, I will be on the Death Doula panel, and then I will also be ending the festival with Universal Life Mastery, how to access and awaken the joy of being. You don't want to miss this. So you can grab your tickets below. There's something for everyone. Click now. We'll see you in the festival. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode of Ask a Death Doula.